Let's start asking some questions. This is Nowruz. Happy Nowruz. I know that you are familiar with Iranian culture and history and our community. We want to have your take of Iranian community here in Southern Ontario.
Well, the Iranian, the Persian community in Canada is very, very strong and well established. It's larger than just its numbers. It has a lot to be very, very proud of in its accomplishments and its involvement. Nowruz, for me, being one of those celebrations that pulls together people of all different religions in Iran is something that I like to highlight as the things that bind us together as human beings and as Canadians are always stronger than those that differentiate us. And I think Canada is one of those countries that is strong not in spite of its differences but because of them, and being able to find common ground and celebrate things together is really important to me, and certainly the Persian community has been at the center of that, not just in the West.
About Iran, you never been to Iran?
Not yet, no. Not yet. I've been to about 90 different countries.
Canada,
but,
yes.
Well, there will have to be significant changes in the government of Iran. I think one of the things that is important that not everyone understands is the distance between the current government of Iran and the Persian people and the citizens of Iran, who by and large are better educated and more global in their outlook than the current government tends to portray. And I think there are very, very real concerns about the current government in Iran that need to be addressed, but one has to make sure that you think about the citizens of Iran and the Iranian government differently, and that's a nuance that I worry sometimes this government doesn't actually appreciate or understand. A good example was the closing of the embassy last year. That I know certain elements of it were a security decision, and I'm not going to second guess the safety of Canadians and the information they might have had, but I'm of the school of international relations that says it's important to talk to each other, and it's especially important to talk to regimes that you disagree with and that disagree with you, to make sure that there is means of communication. When we think about whether it's the Canadians who are on death row in Iran at that particular time, or other issues, or just serving Canadians who happen to be in Iran, or Iranians who have Canadian families, it was important I think to understand that this is not a decision to be taken lightly.
Yeah. Did you follow up the Green movement in 2009 in Iran? Closely.
I didn't follow it tremendously closely. I was just newly arrived in the House of Commons and very busy trying to figure out Canada. I mean, one of the big difficulties for me has been all my life. I've been an international traveler. I've spent years traveling around the world, seeing all sorts of different countries, and over the past 6 or 7 years, I have done almost no international travel at all, because I've been very, very much focused on getting Canada right, and very much engaging with the communities from around the world here in Canada.
Traditionally, the image of the Canada during the decades in the world was a country has the humanitarian actions and peacekeeping. And unfortunately, during the past few years, we look at the foreign policy of Canada has changed radically. And if you look at in the UN or in the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf region, countries, and actually today in Ukraine, there's no anybody from the the leaders of the international community look at carefully to the movement in Ukraine. But Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada goes to the stand, and show up, and today Mr. Harper goes to the Ukraine
for a 3-hour photo op.
My question is, what is your opinion about the foreign policy, actual foreign policy of Canada, and what is your vision if you come Prime Minister of Canada to change this policy?
Well, first of all, to understand Canada's present foreign policy, one has to look at it with a lens of domestic electoral concerns. This is a government. Stephen Harper didn't do much traveling, if any, before he became Prime Minister, and the lens through which he looks at foreign policy is always, is this going to help my electoral prospects back home? That's one of the reasons why he is so very preoccupied with Ukraine, because obviously there's a very large and very concerned, rightly concerned, Iranian-Canadian community. But whether it's a positioning around Israel or positioning around working closely with the United States, he's very, very much focused on what is going to play well at the ballot box. That's not my vision for what Canada can be. And in my first international trip as leader, I went to Washington, D.C., and I made a real point, which I think surprised an awful lot of people, of not bringing up the many disagreements I have with the Canadian Prime Minister, with Mr. Harper, while I was on a foreign trip. I believe that Canada should be of one voice on the international stage, and people can respect that we're a democracy, and yes, there'll be disagreements of opinion, but anyone elected to represent part of Canada in the House of Commons should speak with fairly a consistent voice. So when Mr. Baird chose to go on a conservative-only trip instead of a government trip to Ukraine or other issues like that, I think that there is a weakening of Canada's traditional fairness and openness to the world. But for me, the pillars of Canada's international engagement need to be three things. First of all, classic diplomacy. The number of historically important roles that Canada has played on the diplomatic, whether it's a Suez crisis, for which Lester Pearson won a Peace Prize, whether it's our engagement within the United Nations, or more recently landmines or responsibility to protect. Canada has always played a very, very strong role diplomatically in promoting peace and understanding and dialogue and openness and respect between peoples in the international community. And over the past years, we have a government that is forcing its diplomats to be partisan mouthpieces, and they get all their talking points approved from Ottawa, and it's a breakdown of the classic diplomacy. The second part that's important internationally is engaging in trade. This government has dragged its feet on important trade files, and only just now, whether it's the Canada-Europe trade agreement or Korea or others, is only now sort of rushing to get big trade deals signed. Because they weren't emphasizing trade properly, and you can see a tremendous level of conflictedness around trade that this government is playing up. And the third element is development, an idea of the responsibility that Canada has to be creating opportunity and security around the world, and that means that's done with, yes, in some cases we have to put boots on the ground in the Canadian military, but in a way that understands that there are places in this world where, of all the different Western countries, perhaps only Canadians can go because of Americans' imperialistic connections, because of European colonial powers. Canadians have been seen as there to help, and over the past years we've lost that a little bit, and for me it's very important to get back to it.
Okay. Your message, this is Nowruz, beginning of a spring, for Canadians with Iranian descent, especially young people, please.
My message is just one of celebration. This is, when we talk about politics, it's easy to get cynical and to get negative, but we live in an extraordinary country. We live in an extraordinary time. And as we have a generation of young people growing up who are very proud to be Canadian, but also proud of the heritage they bring with them from all around the world, there is an importance right now in Canada in what it is and what it represents, the message that we share of a country that can be prosperous and fair and happy and successful because of all our differences, is one that has never been more important in the world today, as we see the rise of conflict, the inequality, the resource depletion, the extreme weather events. The message that we bear as Canadians with ties all around the world is that we need a world that resembles more Canada, and this is something to celebrate in our extraordinary diversity. By having a ranked ballot, so that someone would say, well, I really like the Liberal, I'll vote for them first, but I could accept that the NDP, the orange person, would be